Hello, welcome to this webinar on walkthrough of the new Microsoft Graph Explorer. Hello everyone and welcome to this webcast on walkthrough of the new Microsoft Graph Explorer. Myself Nilesh Shah. I am a senior consultant currently based at Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, and you can know more about me on my website www.nilesh.live. So today's webcast is about the walkthrough of the new Microsoft Graph Explorer. So what happened is recently in the first week of May, the Microsoft Graph team has launched a new version and updated version of Microsoft Graph Explorer. So the concept and the theory behind the Microsoft Graph APIs remain the same, but there are some changes, UI changes, and to make the experience more better for the developers. The Graph team has updated the Graph Explorer. So this seminar is on focusing on the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So a little bit about me. I'm a senior developer. My title is senior consultant, but I'm a developer on .NET, Azure, and Office 365. So these are the objectives of this session. A brief introduction to Microsoft Graph API. So remember, this session is not on the Microsoft Graph API. I have previously spoken on Microsoft Graph API, and I plan to have a future session on Microsoft Graph API entirely. But this session is entirely about the Microsoft Graph Explorer. I'll also cover a brief introduction to Office 365 developer program. If someone wants to work with the Microsoft Graph Explorer, then you need your developer account or a test account, and you can get that test account by registering in the Office 365 developer program. I'll show you how you can do that. Understand different components of Microsoft Graph Explorer. So I'll walk through each and every component of my Microsoft Graph Explorer, and I will show you which component is where and how you can work with that. And finally, the demo, in which we'll fire some get calls, update calls, delete calls with the sample account which is provided by the Microsoft and with your own developer account. So first of all, I'll cover briefly about something about the Microsoft Graph APIs. So very first question is why we should know about the Graph API. So if you see the latest build conference that was 2 weeks or so uh, 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 2 weeks or so ago. So and in that also Microsoft has focused so much on the Graph APIs. So now Graph APIs is the way to which you can access the data from Office 365 and everything. So these are some statistics I have taken from some source from Microsoft.com. So 85% of the all Fortune 500 companies are using the Office 365. 100 million active users. There are monthly active users of Office 365. So there's a vast reach of the Office 365 platform. And there are 400 million Outlook.com active users. And there are total 8 trillion resources. If you count together the emails, events, files on OneDrive, groups, and each and everything, so there are 8 trillion resources which you can access using the Microsoft Graph. So that's why it's important for you to know that how to work with Graph API, and very first step is how to work with Microsoft Graph Explorer. So why Microsoft Graph API came into picture? So in previous slide we saw that why you should know about the Microsoft Graph API. Now we will see why Microsoft Graph API came into picture. So what happens that since the launch of Microsoft Office 365, there are many different products in the Office 365 family group, and each and every product may be producing some data, and this data is stored somewhere in the cloud. So if you want to access, if a developer wants to access this data, then currently before the Microsoft Graph launch, what happens that you have to access it using the individual services API. Like for Outlook, there is a different API. For OneDrive, there is a different API, and similarly for each and everything. So they are all effective right now. So you can work with them also independently, or if you want everything together, then you can go with a graph. But in the future, maybe Microsoft has not declared, but in the coming future, they may stop new development in the individual APIs, and everything comes through the Graph API only. So the point is that if if there are so many products in the Office 365 and so many offerings, then to access that data, you need to connect with different APIs and deal with that. So the problem happens is that you have to do the multiple token management and everything. So the solution is one endpoint to rule them all. So why not create a one API endpoint? Through that one API, you can access everything into Office 365. So what the work currently is done by individual APIs for Outlook and OneDrive and etc. If that work can be done by a single API, then it will be better for the developer and better for everyone. So that's the Microsoft Graph, and that's the tagline: one endpoint to rule them all. Because using only one API endpoint, you can access mostly anything in the Office 365 and other cloud services. So this Graph API can be accessed using the HTTPS graph.microsoft.com, and there are some formats I'll show you in the upcoming slides. So it is the easiest way to connect to the Office 365 APIs because there is only one token management. There are no multiple token management, and there is logical navigation of entities. So once you access one resource, then it's a logical navigation path you can traverse, and you can access the child resource or some other resources. This Microsoft Graph API is based on the open standards, so there is no need to include any DLL or something like that. Everything is based on open standards, so it's REST API implementation, and the data is in the format of JSON format. So anything or any client or any device which can make an HTTP call and which can interpret the JSON data can work with Graph APIs. The authentication is based on OAuth tokens, and there is OpenID Connect, and the data transmission and the data protocol is OData. So not particularly the data protocol, but the how data is formatted and everything is defined as per the OData version 4. Microsoft Graph API supports OData version 4.0. So if you want to work with this Microsoft Graph API, then this is the basic URL pattern. I'm not covering so much of graph theories, so much of Graph API theories, and the concept behind that. Will directly jump to the Graph Explorer in a few minutes. So if you want to work with the Microsoft Graph API, this is the basic URL pattern of accessing any resource: graph.microsoft.com/version. So which are the two versions? There are two versions, version 1.0 and beta. So version 1.0 is the general available, and beta is in the preview mode. So in the production environment, don't base your API calls on the beta. uh, then there is resource, so identifier of the which type of resource you want, and there are some optional query parameters. So graph.microsoft.com is your main entry point, main Graph API endpoint, and the resources can be anything you want to access supported by Graph API, like the users, groups, events, and everything. And there are two aliases in Graph API: me and organization. So me will give you the data about the current logged in user, and organization is about the data of the current logged in users organization. And there are some optional parameters like top, count, etc. And we will see in the demo. I'll show you how you can use these parameters to filter some result of the Graph API. So, Graph Explorer, there is a sample account which Microsoft has provided, with which you can fire some queries. But in real life, you will need your own account into which you can create your own users and do some stuff. So don't. This is my advice, that don't play with your organization's live data or your live account of your provided by your organization. You should have a developer account, and the easiest way of getting one a developer account is registering in the Office 365 developer program. If you can go to dev.office.com/dev program, then here you will see how you can join the Office 365 developer program. And the biggest advantage of Office 365 program is it gives you free 1 year of Office 365 developer subscription. So that's very good in the sense that you can play with all the stuff Microsoft Graph API programming and all other APIs development you can do. And there are so many other benefits, but the main benefit is the 1 year free Office 365 developer subscription. So if you are planning to work with Microsoft Graph API and any other Office 365 development, then I suggest you go and register in this developer program and enjoy the benefits of 1 year free subscription. So we are now on the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So how you can access the Microsoft Graph Explorer? It's this URL you see on the screen, developer.microsoft.com/enus/graph/graph explorer. So go to this URL and you can see the Graph Explorer over there. So in this screen, I have tried to explain the different components of Microsoft Graph Explorer. The URL you see, developer.microsoft.com, is the URL to access the Graph Explorer. There is no way to access it programmatically. I mean to say, programmatically, the in your code in dealing with the Graph API, there is no need to use this URL anywhere. This is just for a developer sandbox. So for accessing the developer sandbox, in other words, for accessing the Microsoft Graph Explorer, this is the URL. Uh, you see on the screen, there is the first line is the request type, the uh, get patch and post and delete, and these are the HTTP requests. So these are available in the first lookup box. There is another API version lookup box. If you can see my mouse, currently it's over there, the API version. So there are two versions, as I said, 1.0 and beta. This is the actual endpoint. So this API endpoint is the one endpoint which we are going to write here, and we'll fire some queries by clicking on the run query button. So this is the API endpoint. If you are doing something programmatically, then this is the API endpoint you are going to use. Then there is some request area and there is a response area. So request area has two sections: the request header, in which you can pass the values in the pair of key and value, and the request body is for passing the whole body. Like if you want to create a new user, you will need to pass a JSON data of the user, and that you can pass in the request body. And when you click on the run query, and there will be the Graph API response, and which you can see in the response area. So there is a response preview, and this will show you the response body, and the response headers are only for HTTP headers. There is a small little button on the right middle side here. If you see, that's a share query. So if you have created some query or something and you want to share it with others, then you can copy that query using the share query button and send it to someone by email or something, whatever. And then if that person copies that query and pastes in the browser, then the that query will be directly executed in the Microsoft Graph Explorer. On the left side, you see there are three sections. There is an authentication section, and it mentions that you are logged in using the sample account. You can log in with your own account using the sign in button. There is a sample query section and there is history section. We'll see in the actual graph. So I have written down these points so that I'll cover them all. And let me now show you the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So if you see here, this is the URL for accessing the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So here is the get, and if you notice, currently you cannot change the type from get. So there is a small little mouse cursor which is changed to a blocked one, red block. So it means that you cannot change the get. Once you log in, only then you can change it. The reason behind that is currently you are using the sample account. So that's the account provided by Microsoft, and it's a read-only access. So you cannot change any data or delete any data in the current sample account. So if you want to have something, or if you want to see what's there, you will have to log in, and I'll show you afterwards. This is the the version. So there are two versions, 1.0 and beta. So Microsoft, whenever they launch anything new, or they are going to integrate a new service, then that is available first in the beta version, and once it is tested okay for some time frame, then it moves to version 1.0. But don't base your code, your live application code, on the beta endpoints. This is the endpoint where you can write your API endpoint and fire it. Request header, as I told you, and the request body. So on this left side, this is the authentication section. Below that, there are some sample query section. So if you see, there are the sections named as getting started, it has some queries. Then there is user section, it has some queries. So if you want to see more queries, then you can click on the show more sample. It will open a pop-up, and using that, you can identify, or you can make the setting that which options you want to see. If you want to see the sample queries of one drive, then select one drive. And if you want to see groups or users or whatever, then you can select, and using this radio button you can make the selection on and off. So what is the help, how it is helpful is that it will give you the sample queries. And if you are starting to learn Microsoft Graph API, means you are new to Microsoft Graph API, and if you want to see that how you can access the users files or users messages, and how you can create some data, then this is very handy. So directly clicking on any one of this link, it will fire the query directly into the Microsoft Graph Explorer. And if you see here, the blue box, it has some three sections. The first section is get, so it indicates which type of call it is. That it's a get call, this create user is a post call, the name of the call, and this link is the link to the documentation. So if you want to read more about that, you can read it over here. Notice one thing over here, that this post, there is a post, and if you move your mouse over there, then your mouse cursor is disabled. The reason behind that is you are currently using the sample account, so you cannot create any new data into the sample account. So similarly like that, and if you collapse that section, sample query section, then you will see below the history section. So it will maintain your history on your browser. It maintains in the cookie. So your current browser session history is maintained over here, and you can click on any of that and you can directly fire that query. And it will fire the new query. It will not show you the result data of that particular call. It will make a new call. If you click on the show more button over here, then you see that there is a history. So all the history is visible over there. In that section left side, only 5 to 6 rows were visible, but this shows you all the history query. So this is the very first overview of Microsoft Graph Explorer. Let's start by clicking some queries. So very first query is the me. So when you click on the me, so it will show you some result over here. So this indicates the call was success, and with the status score 200, and it executed in 726 milliseconds. And if you see the data, so this is the Microsoft sample account, and the data, the display name of the sample account is written over here, and along with the email ID and everything. This is the ID. So every resource will mostly have some unique identifier. So this is the unique identifier. You can use this unique identifier in the patch calls to update the resource, or in the delete call to delete the resource if you have user permission. And another one was the organization. So look at over here, whenever you start typing, so this is a little bit of IntelliSense in the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So as and when you start typing, it will tell you that what is the full API, or which API endpoint you can use. So you directly click on this organization, and let us run this query. So you will see that this is the result of this organization, means users company or employer, whatever you can say. And the response preview shows you the JSON body, and the response header shows you the HTTP header. So this data is over there. You can see the data version 4.0, which is the supported version of the current Microsoft Graph API. Coming back to this response preview, if you see that you can expand and collapse using these buttons. So this assign plans is not very much important. It says you that which plans are with the current organization. The main thing is about this display name and everything. So this is a Microsoft API sandbox. Uh, but the thing is, in the left side, you can collapse the data for easy view and everything, and you can expand it by clicking over here. So these are the features which I'm showing you were not available in the previous Microsoft Graph. It was very simple UI, but but with this new launch, Microsoft has tried to update it in some better UI. So let's fire some more queries. So we have seen the me and organization means currently logged in user and the logged in users organization. Let's see the files means whatever files are stored on the OneDrive. So we using the root and children, you can fire this query. So it will show you the data of stored on the user's OneDrive. Similarly, if you can fire the query over here on the left side, then immediately that query will be executed. Let's see the user's photo. So this photo is for the Microsoft sample account email. If you want to see the email, then try to look at, if you're learning something new in the Graph API, try to execute, try to add all the sections in the sample queries and click on this particular link on the left side and try to see that what is the API endpoint. So as in when you click, the API endpoint will change and immediately the query will be fired. We cannot fire the post query. I'll show you once we are logged in. So this is firing the very simple, very basic queries in the Microsoft Graph Explorer. Similarly, you can see the user's event. We have seen the messages. Now we can see the user's events which are stored into the Outlook calendar. So the start time and end time of the event and the name of the event and whatever is written into its body and everything. Uh, you can also see the groups. So whatever are the Office 365 groups in the users organization are available with this query. Let's also see the users. So all users of the current organization will be available over here. So if you see, these are the users in the currently logged in users organization, and this data is into JSON format. So these were the very basic queries you can fire using the sample account. I'll show you many more things later on, but let's continue our journey of working with Microsoft Graph Explorer. So by executing these queries, it is very simple most, and you may have understood now that how you can fire some queries using the Microsoft Graph Explorer. Let's move to the next level now, and there are some optional query parameters. I told you when I showed you the slide of the URL pattern. So there are some optional query parameters which are defined by the OData. So Microsoft Graph API supports that parameters. So if you want to filter out the result, or if you want to have some condition applied on the result, so currently what happens is when I click on the users, every data whatever related to the organization's users is displayed over here. But if you want to have some condition over here that I want this type of user, or I want, let's say, only 5 users or 10 users or whatever, then the Microsoft Graph API's optional parameter comes into picture. So let us start with this one parameter, which is the top. I have not created separate slides for this, but I will show you execution one by one. So so this, or even we can work with that one. So currently, if you see, I have not executed the query here. Currently, if you see, there are so many coming out. Let's say so many, at least I guess at least there are 50 or more. But every time in your application you may not want to see each and every available data. You want to see a subset of data. So if you, let's say, want to see only, let's say, top 3 records or top 2 records, then you can specify it using the top. So how does it work? This is your API endpoint. Behind that, you append the question for the query parameter. This is same as the ASP.NET concept, and this is our optional query parameter, and you specify how many records you want. And when you click on the run, you will see now only two records. Previously there were so many records, but currently there are only two records of the user. So mostly top is used in the paging. Along with top you can use skip. So skip and top are two things which are used for paging. So there is one more thing about count. Many times you may not want you may not want to display all the data. You want to display only the count. So one way is you can fetch all the data and manually do it count. Otherwise you can request the graph API to send you the count only. So by specifying $count, and it's a boolean value, so it does not take any numeric value input, it takes a boolean value. By default it's false only. So if you specify count is equal to true, then you will get the users count. But currently we are getting -1, so it is not giving us the count. Let's try something more. So if you fire this query for the events, that how many events the user's calendar has, you will see here the data count is equal to 3. So 3 number of events are there. And you can also arrange by arrange the results at using the order by. So there is one another parameter named as order by. So when, let's say, we fire the messages, so in messages there is no particular sorting sequence, or you say the order by sequence. If you want to specify the order by, let's say I want to have my messages ordered by the subject, then I can specify using the order by and is equal to the name. So that name subject comes from here. That's a property. So this is the property of the JSON. You can specify it by anything. So subject, so now also all the mails without any subjects are displayed first. And if you go down, then you can see more subjects. And there is one more thing, how you can do it with descending. Like how you can, this is the subject, very first subject is null. So let's say you want to sort into descending, then add space descending. So this is the thing I have added over here. So into order by, now you see the sequence has changed, and if you see the very first subject, so it is the reverse sequence because of the descending one. So it is the reverse sequence because of the descending one. We'll see now the skip one. So we fired the call of getting the users. So in users, it's currently giving you all the want to get only. Uh, uh, I'm implementing paging. So let's say we want to see the second page or something. So we want to skip the very first 10 records. So when I fired skip is equal to 10, so it will. Uh, there are some restrictions over here. Microsoft documentation maintains that there are some resources with which you cannot use it. I'll show you another example of skip with the messages. So not in the user directory, but on the messages you can fire this skip one. And whenever you fire the skip of, so we'll skip that 10 records and we'll start your result from the 11th number of record. And this is how the skip can be used along with the top. So you are skipping 10 records and then you are fetching the top 10 records. So now what happens is that let's see another query parameter. So what happens is when, let's say, I have fired the query to get all the users, so you will get all the data. But in your programming or in your while you're fetching the data, in your logic you may not want everything every time. You may want to see, let's say, only the job title, or you want to see only the mail. So what happens is the default call gets you all the data, but you want to filter out the call so that it gives only you the mail. So let's say this is the mail property you want, then what you can do is you can specify select is equal to mail. So from this set, particularly this data set, JSON data set, for each and every record, from that set only the property with the name of mail will be returned to you. That's the select query parameter. So see the result now, instead of each and every data about the user, you see only and only the mail. So now we'll see the filter parameter. So what happens is that inside these users you want to see only one particular user. Let's say out of these all users, administrator and everyone, let's say this is Alicia and Ali and everyone, you want to see only, let's say, this particular user. So how you can specify that? That is the filter parameter. So users, you want to filter the users result set based on given name is equal to Alan. So if you see over here, the given name is equal to Alan, so it will give you only one record with the given name is equal to Alan. Similarly, if you want to fire the query on the job title, on the mail, on the mobile phone, everything. So this all is specified as per the OData version 4.0. If you don't know about the OData, then I'll suggest you to go and read something about the OData optional query parameters. Then it specifies the format, and Microsoft follows that's the standard format. And there is one expand parameter also. So when you fire the queries for getting items from the OneDrive, these children and OneDrive, so if you see you will get the file. So now we want to expand the very first level, then you can use in the root, means the root folder, you want to expand its children. So this is the use of this expand one. You will get the files inside the folder of the OneDrive. And there is one more thing I want to show you over here. So let's say user has taken this query for me. So this file, the OData context, how do you know that what you will get into the output or what you have to pass into the input? So this one particularly OData context, if you see this particular link, so you have this link to the OData metadata. So that defines the JSON or whatever data is required into input, or what data you will get in the output. So just copy it, this URL in the OData context, and if you paste it, then you will see this whole for XML. So this is the XML So this is the metadata. So if you, let's say, that the user entity will have this property, country property, which is the string. It has some else property, and which is, let's say, boolean property. So this is the OData metadata file supplied with by the Microsoft Graph API. So we have seen here that how we can execute the GET calls using the version 1.0. Now there is something else also here, that's a beta. So now let's see how we can execute some beta calls using the Graph API Explorer. So I have now selected the version to be the beta, and let's see the trending items around the user. So if you see the beta endpoint version 1.0 is now replaced with the beta in the endpoint URL, me insights and trending. So Here you will see the trending items around the user, and trending items around the user, and each and every item has a weight. So based on weight you can decide that how much the user interacts with that particular item or what. So this is currently into the beta version, and these are the people related to the current logged in user, the people which this user mostly contacts or like that. So you can know that which user interacts with which user, and you can identify their interest and like that. So this particular user interacts with this marketing team, and this address very much. So there is a rank, the concept of rank over here. So based on rank you can identify that which user interacts with another user how much or in what frequency. Another beta endpoint is about the one note. So it will give you the notes stored into the user's OneNote account. So this is the URL reference and what is inside that. So till now we have seen that how we can fire the GET queries. Now let's log into user's account and also fire some queries into your developer account. Before that, let me show you one more thing. So if you see that we have seen coming back to these points, we have seen the authentication section, sample section, history section, OData, metadata have shown you, optional query parameter I have shown you, share query and JSON template I'll show you right now. But in the authentication section, there is one thing named as the permission. So whenever a user logs in, then the user needs to assign the permission. So this is the permission dialog. Let's now go back to the Graph Explorer and I will show you this permission dialog. So here in this here in this section, if you want to test your own account, and I advise you to use only the developer account, never log in here with the live account of your organization. Click on the sign in with Microsoft. So this is my developer account I am logging in. So it tells me that I'm logged in with this login ID and this particularly email ID. This is my photo. Uh, Here, this is the permission account which I wanted to show you. So here you can specify individual permission that this particular user has what permissions to firewall. So it can save you the uh, save you from the headache of accidentally deleting something. If you want to work only with the files and emails and everything, then you may not want to work with the events or something. You can here specify the read permission, the write permission and everything. So this is the permission box, and this one, if you are the admin user, then the admin can grant you the admin permission. So but I advise not to play with this very much because you may accidentally delete some data. And if you click on here, it will open the documentation. But I have already set in whatever permissions are required for playing our demo, so we should be fine here. So now if you go here and just 1 minute. Now you go over here and click on this API sorry, the HTTP verb uh, lookup. Then you will see over here that these are the available or supported in the Graph API one. And so before firing any post queries, let's again see the logged in users data. So I'm logged in right now. So this is the me. So it will return my data. So this is my data over here available. If I click on my photo, then it will give you my photo. This is a developer test account, so I don't have any problem of sharing the data over here. So these are the test data. uh, Users, there are currently how many users? 1, 2, 3 and 4. There are currently 4 users, and on the side by side I also have opened uh, Office 365 portal. So if you register with Office 365 developer program, then go to portal.office.com, then you will see this Office 365 portal, which will give you access to mostly everything in Office 365 family. And there is also something else known as the admin portal, so which I have opened over here, the Office portal.office.com/admin portal. So this is the admin portal I am currently, and in that I have opened the active users menu. So if you can see on the screen, these are the 4 users. I am showing you this because I want to show you how you can create a new user, how you can update a user, and then how you can delete a user. So we are already at 7:10, so I should show you quickly. So these are the 4 current users, and we are getting the 4 current users. And remember, while working with the Graph API, that whenever you update any data, it may not be immediately available. So if you go update something in the Graph Explorer and go back to the admin center or the Office portal, and you refresh data and you see why it is not available, then it for your knowledge, let me say you that it takes some time for the portal to update the data. Otherwise, if you fire the call over here in the Graph Explorer, then you will immediately see the data. So there are, let's say, 4 users. So let's create the 5th one. So immediately you can do is like in the users, this is the create user section, and let me click on it. So whenever I click on this post call, immediately you will see that it has Microsoft Graph Explorer has a content type, the request header, as well as in the request body, this is already available. So what is that? This is the a JSON for creating a new user. So this is a sample. You can, if you are testing in the Graph API Explorer, then you can change the data to your data, and you can fire the query. But for showing you the demo, I am firing the query as it is. So I'm running this query. Not here that the HTTP verb has been changed to post. So whenever when I click on the run query, immediately the record is created over here, and you will see the ID. So copy this ID because this is important if you want to play with this particular user. Then this ID is important, and then if you want to see over here, then it may or may not show you depending on the time it takes to sync data. Yeah, it's here. You see the Melissa create user and how we can update user. Sorry, how we can edit user and how we can delete user. So for edit, we have to use the patch, and you have to specify the ID of the user over here. So we see the display name is Melissa Darrow. Let's change it to something. So the display name currently is Melissa Darrow. So what I want to do is I want to change only this one. So I have changed it, or we can change it directly from here also. Remove everything except I have made this one to patch from the post, and remove every line except this display name. Keep the bracket. So let's make this to taste whatever. Let's say taste graph. So this one, this Melissa Darrow should change to taste graph using this patch call, and let me fire this query. So it says it was successful 204. Let us see over here whether it's changed or not. It is not reflected. If we change the query, then it will show the data. So over here, the display name is now changed to whatever we have written over here, the test graph one. Similarly, if you want to delete this particular record, then you can fire the delete call. So make the API endpoint HTTP word to delete. Keep the URL same and fire the delete call, and you will see that delete call also succeeded. So it should go away from this. It's still there, but it's there. This is one user, another user, third user, fourth user. So that record Melissa Darrow one, the old one which we changed to test graph, is not available over here. So this is mostly it. This is mostly it about how you can work with it. Work with the Graph Explorer. So back to the presentation now. One, let me see if we are missing anything. The JSON template I have shown you. The SAR query, let me show you the SAR query. We'll go back to the Graph Explorer. So let's say my email, whatever. Let's say, so this is the my mail query or this query, and you want to share this to some other user. So you can click on this. So it will tell you that you can copy this query, and I'm copying this query, closing it. You can open another browser, but I am firing in here only. So this can be another user to another browser, and they can fire that query. So immediately Microsoft Graph will change everything to this one. It's mentioned in the URL that method should be get and the request should be this. It will not execute. You have to run the query manually. So if you are into some collaborative development environment or something across the teams, if you want to share something, then you can do it in this way. uh, so coming back to the presentation now. So in this slide we have covered everything. Paragraph permissions I have shown you. That's it, and thank you very much for attending my session. I am recording this session, so it will be uploaded onto my site nilesh.live/webinars. See you in the next webinar. Thank you very much. Bye.